everybody. I'm Joanne Shango. I am the head of school at the Montessori School Rochester here in Rochester Hills, Michigan. We have a rainy day outside. It's been raining for much of the weekend, and with the rain came great things, and it also brought in more of a bottling feeling for many people. It feels like these last 10 weeks that have been going on with the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders are reaching a point where both adults and children are feeling a lot, I guess we could say. I think that there's so many different varieties of people that we're all going through different things, yet all stemming from the same situation. While we're all looking to return to a healthy, happy way of living, many of us are feeling anxious and ready to get back into life, and many of us are feeling anxious and worried about what that would entail. There are others that are feeling that it isn't time. There are many that are feeling that it's past time. All of these different feelings and the way that different people are experiencing these feelings regarding COVID and the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and businesses being closed, schools being closed, is causing a different layer of stress amongst people in a time where we're being asked to maintain social distance. And yet I keep thinking, as humans, we are innately social. From the beginning of time, there were villages, groups working together, and regardless of culture. And we still say today, we often say it here at the Montessori school, that it takes a village. And right now we're being asked to, in order to take care of our village, to stay away from that village of people. And yet we are innately social, and we need that social connection and support for our emotional health and well-being. And so how do you balance the two? How do you balance that responsibility to our village, as well as the responsibility to self-help and self-care for ourselves and for our family members? It's really trying. We live in a world where we are more socially connected in a virtual world. And yet, over the years, as social media has taken a larger and larger presence, there has always been, or in recent past, there have been more and more statements that discuss the shallowness of that social connection. Somebody that you knew from high school and you chat with on social media pretty regularly, you like what they have posted, or you make comments and have discussions on cooking or child rearing or work or relationships on their post, but then you might see them while you're out and about and you think, I don't know what to say to this person. I actually haven't come in contact with them, spoken with them in 20 years. I remember this happened to me. There's a young, well, I guess neither of us are young anymore, but there's a gentleman that I knew as friends. I was friends with his sisters. We went to youth groups and church, organization type events for years together. But as time went on, 20 years passed, and I had never come face to face with him. But we were on social media together. He cracks me up. He's hilarious. And and then I saw him and his family out at an amusement park in Ohio. And I walked past and I recognized him immediately. And I kind of stood there like a deer in headlights. Do I go up to him? What do I even say? I haven't spoken to him. I haven't spoken to his wife. I think I've spoken to her a couple of times in 20 years. So awkward. And yet I would have said before I came face to face with him that we were social, we were friends, I could have chatted with him, and yet it felt different in person. So this idea of social media, and while we're still staying together, it doesn't quite fill the void. And that's the purpose of that whole little story. Social media doesn't quite fill the void that many of us are experiencing right now, while we try to respect in our own capacities the social distancing that's being required of us as we are trying to navigate how our households, how our life is going to look in the next week, let alone over the summer or in a year from now. We have an ability to maintain social connections through a virtual world, whether it's with long lost friends from high school or previous work experiences, or it's with our family in Zoom calls, or House Party, I think, is a new app that's out where people can maintain some kind of social connection. In some ways, those experiences not only fall short from meeting our actual needs, but can cause a further feeling of disconnect once it's over. And that is important for all of us to recognize. I know that 8 weeks ago, a couple weeks into social distancing, stay-at-home orders were in place here in Michigan, and telehealth was very dominant. It still is. The virtual learning platforms, the virtual learning platforms that so many schools like myself had launched were taking shape and finding much success. We were doing really well in our virtual learning platform. We still are. And the conversations were surrounding the idea of maybe more and more schools will move to some percentage of their days or their times into these platforms because they seem to be more successful. They might manage people's time better. Likewise with telehealth, it seems like a great way to communicate and maintain, particularly for certain types of visits where you wouldn't actually have to go in. And then the weeks continued to pass, and those conversations started to move to the wayside. And while there is a value and a validity to some of those conversations, we've begun to realize as humans that we do need that face-to-face. We do need that contact. We do experience a deeper level of connection and understanding when we are face to face, because again, we are social people and it is in our nature to be social, whether we're introverts or we're extroverts. That's not really what we're talking about here. There is a need to connect with another individual, to make eye contact with them, to feel the energy, to see the spark that might be emanating from their being or through their eyes, which doesn't quite translate on a telephone line or through different social media platforms. And so we're in a position where right now schools and businesses, the government, are looking ahead and seeing what's happening and how do we open up. And as we start preparing for that on a larger scale, from organizational structuring of what it will actually look like, as humans, as individuals, as parents, we need to start also looking into how do we prepare ourselves and what are we comfortable with as the world begins to open up more and more. How do we prepare ourselves for certain eventualities? How do we make ourselves comfortable as we start experimenting with more social engagement? What is it we need to do? It might be things as simple as, I have to get back to work. Can I send my child to summer camp? we're hosting a summer camp, and it's going to be fabulous. And we changed it. It's still a wonderful STEAM into summer camp that is full of science and technology, engineering, art, architecture, and Montessori, of course. But we moved it to be, rather than 50% outdoors, to be about 90% outdoors, weather permitting, just to accommodate and breathe in the fresh air and have natural immunities building in the outdoors with less shared space and enclosed air circulation and all of that kind of stuff. So we had to look at that, and it turns out that it's going to be even better than we thought. But we had to really look forward and say, yes, summer camp is something we want to do. Returning to school in the fall is definitely what we want for our children. But we had to prepare. And then I started receiving the questions from families like all of you. I've received emails from people that already have relationships with their school, the hundreds of families that already have relationships with our school. I've received emails from people that don't have a relationship and are considering what summer is going to look like for their children. And so we want to look at it from a parent's perspective as well. When I look at it from my own perspective, it's really important that each of us begins to prepare what that's going to look like as we move out of this isolation and slowly move back into more social interactive situations. We have to think with innovation, even as parents. We have to not only think, I have to go to work and my children have to go somewhere, but we have to think about what that's going to look like and what we're prepared for our children experiencing, what we're prepared for feeling. And the feelings were vast. From almost everyone, initially it was like, yes, there's going to be summer camp. And then there was, tell me a little bit more about how you're preparing. Will the group size change? How will we sanitize? And those are real questions from the same families that were saying, yes, we're ready for this. Because we're all experiencing, to some measure, both sides of that equation. And both sides of the equation are valid. Some are more focused on one side than the other. But as we prepare for more socialization, as we prepare for the world opening up more and more, we want to prepare ourselves so that the emotional growth that we're ready to have, that emotional stability of reconnecting socially, seeing people one-on-one, is indeed tempered by those feelings of, is it safe? How will I deal if? And then you solve that equation, right? And solving the equation can be done in many different ways. In math, in Montessori, there's 100 different ways to do multiplication. There's so many different materials that we have in order to explore the concept of multiplication so that children can understand the concrete exploration of that function of numbers and what's actually happening. And it looks different for each child. And so too, in this equation of wanting to get out, needing our village, longing for social interactions, we have the other side of the equation that also needs to be solved, and they always need to be solved together. If you solve one side and not the other, you're not coming to equality. And if you're not coming to equality, you're not necessarily feeling at ease with the solution. And when we're solving equations, we're looking for a positive solution. We're looking for an answer that makes sense to us. But how we get there is going to look a little bit different. It's really important as we are looking at the solutions to really pay close attention to the dynamics in your family, the dynamics that your family and your children or yourselves experienced in the workplace or in schools or with your other extended family members, neighbors. Look at the dynamics of what they were before, and then process to see how they're going to look different for yourself. What are precautionary measures you might take? What are full dive measures you might be choosing to take? And on the other side of that equation, what are the possible measures that the other person or the school or the camp that you're choosing, what measures are they taking so that when you come together and you put both parts of those equations together, you come to a solution that you actually feel comfortable with. It's really hard to continue moving forward in uncertainty. And in times of uncertainty, as we saw as schools like ours moved into a virtual learning platform, a distance learning platform that we would have never foreseen ourselves doing, we used technology and we used innovation. The way our brain thinks to puzzle and problem solve to find a new way of doing things. And right now, as we are getting ready to move forward, we want to think innovatively. How do we meet the needs of our family? How do we meet the needs of our children? Sometimes what they want is not what they're going to get. We all know that. I used to sing I think it's a Rolling Stones song to my children when they would want certain things, and I'd coach them on how to speak or whatnot. And but then the answer was still, we're going to try something different right now. And they would be upset, and I would sing, you can't always get what you want. I'm not going to sing for you because that would not be good. But I would sing that to my kids, and that's still true today. Not everything that we want as adults and not everything that our children want are we going to be able to satisfy immediately. But we can think with creativity and innovation balanced with real problem solving and caution so that we can begin to move forward while everyone feeling at ease. It's very uncomfortable to be trapped in fear or anxiety. And every article that I read as I prepare to visit with you guys on these days is really talks about the idea of coming to terms with your thoughts and your feelings so that you're not trapped in discomfort with anxiety, to be able to communicate with your children when you feel most at ease. And I really urge us to work through that, because while we're all feeling different things, there are people that are saying enough and I'm going out, and there are other people that are saying I'm so afraid to step off of my lawn. And neither one is more right. I might have an opinion, you might have an opinion, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. We have the freedom of having different opinions, while we have a responsibility to each other in our villages, in our large communities, to support and maintain safety, well health, joy, excitement, and innovation so that we're constantly growing. Summer is coming, the year is progressing, and we have to start preparing. So I really urge you, as you think about options for yourself and for your families, to focus on the different emotions you've been experiencing, to focus on the emotions that your children have been feeling or expressing. Those aren't always equal either. And then begin to make a plan. As you make that plan, involve your children. They have a right to be part of the conversation. Are they our decision makers? They're not. They're not our final decision makers. That responsibility falls on our shoulders as parents or as guardians of these children. However, they do have a voice and they do have thoughts. And their voice and their thoughts, combined with your own voice and your own thoughts, your concerns, and your responsibilities and everything that you're trying to weigh, when they're combined with a viewpoint that is coming from a naturally different perspective, that of childhood, whether they're 3 or they're 7 or they're 12 or they're 18, their viewpoint is going to allow more innovative thoughts and therefore possibly more creative solutions that perhaps you wouldn't see otherwise. I was speaking with a family, and not my family, but they had three children, and all of them were experiencing different things. One was happy to stay inside of a bubble, not just happy, he was anxious if anybody came anywhere near his bubble. He wants his bubble to be 6 feet, and then he wants people to be 6 feet outside of that bubble. And the other one was, hey, I'm ready to go, and if I didn't have to worry about my brother, I'd be going. And the third one that was sitting in the middle of caution. And so 3 children that were feeling different things. Now, one of those is a senior. One of those children, or adolescents, we'll call him, is a senior and super excited about graduating and going away to university. And on the very fine edge of that, he's terrified. He's devastated at the thought of not going, and he's terrified at the thought of going. And it takes preparation and real conversations with him, not about him, but with him, to actually prepare for any eventuality that might occur with university and taking that next step into young adulthood for him. The conversation has to include him. It has to include him out of respect for his age as being 18, but it has to include him in order for the parents and him to truly come up with a solution or a variety of plans that everybody is comfortable with, so that not only are they comfortable with the eventual plan that will take hold, but also for the possibility of what plans do not, what doesn't happen. And that's the conversations, and that's why they're really important. Those conversations, again, whether it's with your 5-year-old or your 7-year-old or your 18-year-old, it's important to have those open conversations. Now, how do you have open conversations without either being trapped in too much anxiety or despair? And how do you have them without an overtly or extreme positive outlook? How do you temper those two things so that it's based in realism but offers innovation and creativity in different possible solutions that we could all be comfortable with? We don't want to promote more fear. We don't want to promote more angst. We don't want to promote more anxiety or frustrations. And yet we also don't want to give unrealistic hopes, because we don't know what's actually going to unfold, just like we don't know what has already unfolded. So having open conversations where they feel at ease and that you are able to project comfort and confidence in the variety of plans that you make is what will allow you to make those summer plans. It is what will allow you to make those fall plans. We hope that so many of you are thinking about summer camp. We hope that we can be a very comfortable outdoor home with our outdoor science and technology fun summer camp for your children. And yet we're also looking and saying, but what else? What if we can't? Or what if certain families feel that they can't? What else can we do? Can we offer virtual summer camp? Can you do summer camp virtually and still get kids outside? What is it that we can do? And that's where the important conversations that prepare us to connect socially with each other in a real way as things open up also allow us to temper with thoughts and concerns of the what ifs without those what ifs dragging us down, so that we can still continue to survive in what's occurring today. And for us in Michigan today, we're still under stay-at-home orders. We're also trapped inside because of the rain, but we are still in stay-at-home orders at least for I think another 7 or 8 days. And so we want to be able to stay positive and centered in today without that anxiety, for ourselves and for our children so that they can get through these last weeks of the more confined stay-at-home orders and prepare for stepping out and feeling comfortable, feeling safe, so that they can begin to engage in, our children that is, can begin to engage in more social experiences that they do desperately need. Children need socialization. And virtual socialization worked really well, but it is not a replacement for the real thing. And so we need to prepare them and ourselves to be comfortable in that so that there isn't a laissez-faire attitude, nor is there too much fear and anxiety that prevents the healing that they need or to get the connections that they need. That would prevent healing. We don't want that to occur either. We want to be prepared for it. So today's conversation, I hope, made sense. It was hard for me to prepare for today. I was really, after Friday, I was thinking we're going to do positive stuff on Monday. We're not going to talk about the emotions. We've hashed that a number of times. And yet, just because we have discussed it doesn't mean it's not still happening. But we do want to look forward, and we do want to be positive, and we want to do it in a way that we're fully prepared. And that's what we're doing here with our summer camps. That's what we're doing with our team members and with our families. But it's all real conversations where I can say, I do hear you as an adult. I do see the needs of the children. And I fully embrace the responsibility I have to balance both ends of the equations of what we would like to do and what we're worried about happening, and finding the actual solutions so that we can give our children what they need and we can give ourselves what we need. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. If nothing else, perhaps it promoted conversations with you and your families. And on Wednesday, I will have some specific tools of activities and things that you can do with your children while we're still waiting to see how the world unfolds. Thank you all very much. Stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. We miss you and we love you. Bye, everybody.